it's really the implicit premise of ecology that the existing world is the best possible world, in the sense of it's a balanced world which is disturbed through human hubris. So why do I find this problematic? Because I think that this notion of nature as harmonious, organic, balanced, reproducing, almost living organism, which is then disturbed, perturbed, derailed through human hubris, technological exploitation, and so on, is, I think, a secular version of the religious story of the fall. And the answer should be not that there is no fall, that we are part of nature, but on the contrary, that there is no nature. Nature is not a balanced totality which the humans disturb. Nature is a big series of unimaginable catastrophes. We profit from them. What's our main source of energy today? Oil. Are we aware what is oil? Oil reserves beneath the earth are material remainders of an unimaginable catastrophe. Are we aware? Because we all know that oil is composed of the remainders of animal life, plants, and so on and so on. Can you imagine what kind of unthinkable catastrophe has to occur on Earth? So that's good to remember.
Can you stop there? So, in typical Zizek portion, he ranted quite a bit during that time. If you have trouble hearing, he basically indicts the idea of ecology as ideology. That ecology is a new way of ascribing meaning to the earth. Like if an environmental catastrophe is coming, it's better for us if we understand it as we deserve this because we've done something wrong, rather than to accept the meaninglessness of the cosmos. That this is just something that happened. And he said, instead of thinking that we need to do something to get closer to nature, that we have to realize that nature as a concept doesn't really exist. There is nothing that is just natural. That the world and the other worlds in the universe go through lots of different processes that we don't really understand, and that there's not any one person or thing governing what happens. And to ascribe meaning otherwise is false. So, I mean, in simpler terms, he's saying this is a new religion. And actually, later in the clip, he actually talks about ecologists as the new opiate of the masses. And he says that instead of becoming closer to nature and being more eco-friendly, that we should actually become more artificial. And if instead of separating ourselves from the trash, that we actually can love the trash and love our existence in the trash, that is what our agency is limited to, and that's kind of an affirmation of the way that we understand the pointlessness of the cosmos. All right, that's another link argument you can make against those type of apps. All right, apps that exploit, okay, obvious links, consumption, environmental degradation, resource competition. I mean, all the worst things. And those type of debates, it'll just be, in a college, like ecologically friendly apps might go for the permutation. Okay? These type of apps are going to have to go for the impact term. So That's what you need to be prepared for. In many ways, I think these type of apps are better off against the Cap K than some of the ecologically more friendly apps because they go in the same direction. And if you can win a case turn with uniqueness, then you're probably in a better spot than even against these because it's just a question of impact. Okay, as always, this gets put to last, but we need to briefly go over this stuff. Okay, functionally these are the opposite. Okay, first thing you want to win is capitalism is sustainable. The idea is that capitalism has made modifications. Okay, Marx predicted socialist overthrow of the government due to the manufacturing age. He thought the whole world would have a revolution, but it didn't. The reason it didn't is because capitalism, both politically and economically, made adjustments. They saw the writing on the wall, things are not good. They granted the workers some rights and basically made conditions more tenable. So the idea is that those who have wealth and power's desire for the sustainability of the system will ultimately outweigh their desire for wealth accumulation, because their wealth means nothing, if thousands of people go up to their mansion and string them up, okay? So they're not dummies, they're going to make the system more sustainable. Also, not only that, but technological advancement. I didn't bring that up because we brought it up earlier. The technological advancement will make things easier. Okay, how many of you pay for music? Okay, when I was a young lad and someone released a CD, I would have to go to the store and buy the CD on the day it came out, and I'd be so excited because I now own this CD. And you all are excited for it. Okay, that type of technological advancement, the market has not been able to control, so it shows a contradiction. Maybe capitalism will bring technological advancement that will further the interest of the commons at the expense of the interest of the wealthy, the interest of the powerful. Maybe this 3D printing thing that's coming is really going to make copyrights ludicrous. If we can print a pair of shorts that look exactly like the Nike shorts that I want to buy on Amazon, but I can print them at my house, and I don't have to pay anyone for it, then why am I going to pay the extra $40 because it says Nike on it? I can print it, say Nike on it at home with my 3D printer. Also, CAP's internal conflicts are solved and mitigated by capitalism. Okay, there's there's not a self-interest to implode. So those contradictions can be worked out. Also, CAP provides value to life. Okay, capitalism has radically individualized cultures, or at least gone hand in hand with the individualization of cultures. We now think about, ourselves. We think about what we're going to do, what our family's going to be when we grow up, how much money we're going to make. We're not thinking about how am I going to make the United States a better place when I'm older, right? That's not our decision calculus under capitalism. And so the value and agency of the individual is put ahead of the value of the commons, which would seem to be a better interlink to individual value life, because agency exists, freedom exists, and a lot of that would be taken away in a world where we prefer the good of the many to the good of yourself. Lastly, alternatives don't solve and they make things worse. Okay? I mean, in some ways, this is kind of a joke, right? Marx came along, he changed history, had lots of countries try to make transitions to different types of socialism and communism, and short of, for very short times, very small communities, there have not been resounding successes. Okay? I'm Mormon. I'm really into Mormon history, and early on in the early 1800s, when the Mormons were kind of getting their stuff together, they decided they'd live by a form of godly socialism, and they equally divided everything, and it lasted like a couple months. And then one of the church leaders got caught skimming extra cream off the top of the milk, and it just imploded. Now, Mormons are the most capitalist religious group you can think of. I mean, they own malls and lots of stuff. All right. So alternatives are crazy. To get people to act against their own self-interest sounds counterintuitive. Okay, we've seen transition wars. How are you going to upset the power? If the government's really in on capitalism and they have the nukes, what are you going to do about that? So you can minimize the alternative solvency to something close to zero. Good cross-ex questions, like even antiquated ones, like who does your alternative? Okay, still seem pretty pertinent when it comes to this, because if it's just the judge, then there's probably very little use of solvency. And if it's some large movement, then the idea of passing policy is going to upset that, and that movement was doomed anyway. And then obviously you need to do a good job on framework. Okay, you need them to be responsible for an alternative. When it says CAP self-adjusts, that's when we're talking about here, and that CAP's internal conflicts are solved by capitalism. We're talking about the impact term debate there, where you can win CAP is good for a litany of reasons, just like you can hedge good versus hedge bad, you have your CAP good versus your CAP good, or CAP bad debate. But you need to make sure that they have to defend an alternative, because when you line up the impacts and you have one for one, it helps if you know what their alternative will result in other disadvantages like transition wars. And that generally is the tiebreaker when it comes to capitalism debates. So don't settle on just cap good versus cap bad. You need to make sure that in your interpretation of the desirability of the policy, that they have to defend an alternative. Yeah?
So how do you hedge back against like discourse alternatives saying transition will
What does discourse result in?
I feel like maybe whenever they say like this is the most ethical thing to do, which is the reason why you should vote on it, like that kind of like even.
I guess the question becomes, what do you do? Like what if, the teams won't answer this question, but you should definitely say what is the political alternative? What is the end point to your criticism? But when it comes to your best thing to do with the discourse alternative is to minimize their ability to solve. Like, it can be somewhat of a double-bind argument that either you lead to a transition away from capitalism, which means you link to our transition war arguments, or you don't. And you're stuck with the status quo and there's no uniqueness to your terms. Okay.